Morning, everybody. Welcome back. We got a key issue to talk about today in regards to Alberta's path to independence. And it has to do with the native people and the immigrants. There's a few things that we have to go over here, and later on in the episode, my buddy Loman will be joining me. He is an immigrant to this country himself and has a few key points he would like to talk about. But for now, we're going to start off with a key headline that came up this morning that the Sturgeon County Cree Nation has issued a cease and desist order to our leader, Danielle Smith, in her attempt to push independence forward. Now, problem is, their claim is that it has to do with treaty lands and that the fact that it's their land. I got news for you people. It's not. I mean, it is. But it was given to you, among a bunch of other things that have been given to you by government that are funded by us taxpayers. Okay? And the thing is, the harsh reality of it is, whether you care to admit it or not, you're not worried about your land. You're worried about the free government paycheck. You're worried about free post-secondary education to the third generation. You're worried about the rest of the handouts that are paid for by we, the taxpayers, that you would lose. And guess what? Nobody cares. It's time for you to integrate into normal society. Put on your big boy and big girl pants, get a job, get a new place to live, and operate like the rest of us. We all have issues. We're not saying that. But you're not worried about the fact that it's treaty lands. No. You're worried about all the perks that you get for living on it. And take it from me, someone who used to live near a lot of native reserves back when I lived in Ontario. If you cared about any of the stuff that was given to you, you would stop destroying it. It's just a simple fact. I've seen it with my own two eyes. So there's the key of that issue, and in a land purchase agreement, you would get relocated to another reserve somewhere in Canada, or, like I said, you integrate into society and join the rest of us. Instead of collecting government paychecks and welfare and every other handout, you operate like normal people. You get a job, you pay your way. It's part of being part of the working class and doing what's best for Alberta. You're not thinking about the greater good of everybody. You're thinking about what's best for yourselves. Okay? Now, let's move into the immigration side. So, if you are a permanent resident here in Alberta, we would honor that because you are already here on permanent legal basis to stay here. And it would be no choice but for us to keep that in place. However, if you are a temporary immigrant worker with Canadian temporary immigrant worker status, you have Canadian government documents, you would have to be relocated to another Canadian province. It's just how it works because Alberta would no longer be part of Canada. And if we move forward with joining the United States, we would have to cooperate with President Donald Trump, given the fact that he is much stricter on immigration than Canada ever has been. So that would be something to keep in mind as well. Now, if you've already gotten your citizenship, you don't have to worry about that. And the other side to this is also how Albertans now would be transitioned into Alberta residents and citizens, and then later down the road, once we become the 51st state, you would be transitioned into American citizens through naturalization, because it wouldn't be a matter of us crossing the border, it would be the border crossing us. So that would not be an issue. Joining me now is my good buddy Loman. He is an immigrant to this country himself. Loman, you came to Canada how long ago?
I came into this country in 1996.
Okay, so you've been here as long as I've been alive.
20. Yeah, I mean, I came into this country in 1996. What brought me to this country was I was married to a Canadian at that time, of which we met in Australia, and she extended the olive branch to come to Canada. At the time, I was in a little bit of a travel bug mode. I was backpacking for a bunch of years, and when that opportunity came to me, it was a little nerve-wracking to go on the other side of the world, being from New Zealand. But however, you know, I'm a person that goes against the grain, and say, why not? Once I got here, I quickly realized that Canada is a lot like New Zealand.
Right.
It's just got a larger mass.
So,
Right?
when you came to Canada, what were your expectations compared to what you actually experienced?
Well, all I had known about Canada was Cool Runnings, the movie, and a lot of snow. Right, so it was one of the things that I wanted to see was snow. For where I grew up, there was not a lot of it.
Right.
I think, like any other Canadian, after about a week of experiencing snow, I wanted it to go away.
Of course.
Right? But through that process of discovery, I mean, traveling across, you know, going to Saskatchewan, going to Banff, going to these places to really see what Canada has to offer, I just quickly came to realize this is just big New Zealand. Right? We're just a lot greener, and our winters are wet versus a dry snow.
Yes.
Culturally, it was diverse like New Zealand. Right? It was a welcoming country for immigrants, which, as an immigrant, was good for me. Right? But I didn't really have big expectations, as I was still in that mindset of travel.
Right.
I just wanted to see a different country, to say that been there, done that, rather than it was and never was. And I just fell in love with it and stayed. And I'm still here 26 years later, I think it is.
About 30. I'm 29, so almost 30 years.
Okay, I'm giving myself a little bit of grace because I don't want to tell people my age.
Right. Fair.
Right.
So now that you've been here, well, as long as me, I guess you could say, even though I was born here, what makes you ready to leave and have Alberta join the U.S., you know, down the road?
You know, that's a very good question. I've always been an individual that has kind of been awake at all times.
Right.
About the system downfall, no matter whether it's New Zealand, Australia, or Canada, because it falls underneath the monarchical constitution, right? And New Zealand has had its own problems regarding that. The biggest turn for me was this. As an immigrant that went through the process, I swore an oath to this nation. I raised my hand to the square, and I swore an oath to this nation to live the Canadian way, to uphold its laws, to integrate within society, and basically not create any riffraff. Let's just put in the plain terms. I also understood oaths are binding. I also got an oath from the government to give me Canadian privileges and rights, right, to become a Canadian. And at the downfall of COVID and the lockdowns that happened, the first thing that I did was call the Alberta Human Rights Society, right? Because on the net, it lays out your freedoms, that you can govern yourself, so forth, within the province of Alberta. It was crickets. They wouldn't even open, pick up the phone. You couldn't go talk to anyone. And so from my perspective and standing, the Canadian government, Trudeau government, broke their contractual oath with me on not allowing me to follow and worship my deity as I see fit, to be able to be in a group without hindrance, to travel, not drive, to travel across this country unhindered. And as a dual citizen, I was prevented to leave this country because I was not vaccinated at the time, and I was not allowed to go into New Zealand as someone that was also not vaccinated. I became a political prisoner.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned.
I believe a lot of us did.
Prisoner as a New Zealander who could not leave this country as a dual citizen, and I also was politically held captive as a Canadian. And that is when the boots came to ground for me, because the light bulb went off a long time ago. But I'm like, that's it. This country has lost its moral compass by voting for people with the expectancy that as long as we vote with a different person that has relatively good policies, things are going to change.
Right.
And at that time, I said to myself, Ralph Klein would be turning in his grave right now.
Absolutely.
Because he left with a debt-free province. We had surplus coming in the mail as a result of our resources, right, that we have. And I'm like, something is wrong here. Either I stand up for myself and my family, because too much trust is put into this system. And that's what I really look at is we need to get rid of the system. Right. So that's my light bulb moment is my rights were taken away as a dual citizen, and I became a political prisoner. I actually give some further context. I wrote a letter to Justin Trudeau and to Jacinda Ardern at the time, calling it out that you operate an illegal pyramid system as a corporation, and you have sequestered the rights of everyone in this nation that goes against your narrative. And inside the Canadian passport and all Commonwealth passport, there is a mandate from the Queen at the time to allow the bearer of this passport to pass through unhindered and provided all forms of protection.
Right.
And all of that went away. In my view at that time, if you're going to make these changes, the hierarchy is Prime Minister, Governor General, Queen. The Governor General could have overrode the Prime Minister and said, no, this is not happening. And the Queen, with her mandate, could have stepped up as well. Right? So,
of course.
That's in a contextual nutshell, that's what it is. That's what it was for me.
Okay, wow. Okay, I've got one more question for you here, Loman. As an immigrant yourself, how would you handle the immigration and permanent resident situation in Alberta once we separate from the Commonwealth that is Canada?
I think so to understand your question, you're saying, okay, we've gone through the process and we're going to actually be annexed. Is that what you're saying?
We've separated from the Commonwealth that is Canada, and we're now trying to figure out what we do with the immigrants that we have.
Well, to backtrack a little bit, the eye-opener for me was I work in oil and gas, right? And I work with a lot of Ukrainians, Russians, Muslims at times. And there was a common factor that came out of their mouth was, your government is a joke. They paid me money to come here, and I was unvetted. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I went through the process, and I got no handout. It cost me $14,000.
Right.
Because I had to go through it twice. So I tend to think that when it comes to permanent residency and immigration, in the context that we haven't separated yet, okay, is in my position, I would hold all immigration, whether it's asylum or going through the process to migrate over here. There are 93 U.S. consulates around the world, and there are 163 embassies. I don't see a problem in saying we're halting immigration here in Canada to ensure that those that we have allowed in are properly vetted. But let's take that a little bit a different way. With these embassies and consulates that we have established in other countries, immigration process will start in your country, not here in Canada.
Right.
For a couple of reasons. One, we don't need to build the buildings here in Canada for migration purposes when you can utilize an already existing building in those countries. The downfall that I have seen with a lot of immigrants who are highly educated and skilled that come over here, they come over with a promise. Canada is great. Canada is loving. Canada is arms open. Let's give you a hug. But I'm sorry, you're a doctor. Your qualifications do not meet the standards here in Canada. So you have to now go back to school, which is a process in itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now they're flooded in jobs that they're not doing, which pushes the jobs out for the actual existing Canadians. So to make a long story short, to a degree, you apply in your home country. We can save money by utilizing the existing buildings in our consulates and embassies to either annex or make room for an immigration department, but at the same time, they used as okay, you've got these qualifications. Let's do your testing here in your country for the equivalency test in your country before we accept and send you over with job placement. Right? The people that are here already, if we have gone through the process and we are going to be annexed, prior to that, I believe that there should be a call out to existing Albertans that have left the province, right, to allow them to come back, right, and reside in Alberta based upon the fact that we are going to make some economic, employment, and tax changes beyond belief. And it allows them to come back, which will influx jobs, and it will also increase the real estate market by those that are coming back into the province. That will fuel the economy as well. But in my eyes, asylum and immigration process are two different things. We do need to have immigrants, but we need to put a stop to the influx, the uncontrolled influx that is unvetted. Take a look at what's happening in the United States. Over 30 million people have come across their southern border unchecked.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I don't want you to come into my home if you've got a record of pedophilia, or you are a politician career as a career criminal.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want that on the back of my doorstep. So why should we allow them to come in? So to bring it all together, stop immigration, period.
I agree.
We have, and in all honesty, I like to put the responsibility as an example to you, and it's just an example to your viewers who are listening, right? I lived in Redstone, Calgary, which is a predominant East Indian community. Not a problem. I love them. Right? I love them in New Zealand. I've got family that are related to them. Right? But when you come over with 8 members of your family, I do believe that if you're a minor, you commit one crime, your whole family's visas are gone. And the reason why I say that is we need to put the ownership on the families to control their families.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right? To control their families. Put them in line, or your family goes. And there should be an implementation that regardless whether you have just become a new permanent resident or citizen, if you commit a serious crime within 5 years, you're gone. You're gone. Poland allows no Muslims to come into their country. Now that can sound racist saying that, but it's not. It's just a fact. Facts don't lie.
Exactly.
Right? right? So there needs this. The money is going into hiring more police, which I kind of get. We have an influx of crime, right? But at the same time, you've sworn an oath. That's the thing. You have sworn an oath to integrate into Canadian society. And if you're just saying, okay, I got my pass now, I can just be willy-nilly who I am culturally, right? Which is Canada's foundation is a Christian-based country. Before immigration all came around. So I'm just saying that there need to be heavier, stringent policies and not just such an open, welcome policy without accountability for one's actions. If I'm responsible 30 years, as you say, 30 years later, if I commit a crime, I'm punished. Well, you're not only committing a crime, you also just recently got your approval to be in this country.
Yeah.
We're revolting, and it needs to be legislatively put in place as part of the immigration process. Right? That's my personal feeling. However, then it's not someone else's personal feeling, but until no one who's an immigrant can't talk to an immigrant who's experienced more from two different countries, seen two different government styles. Right? Canada has lost its moral compass in my eyes. It's lost its moral compass at the political level.
And I would agree with you there, and I thank you for joining this conversation, because this is something that I think is a long time coming for Alberta, and it's something that needs to happen now after the most recent election. Here, Loman, thank you for joining me today, and we'll be back with another episode in a few days.